Hello, this is MB Cash back with another figure review, and this time I'm going to be taking a look at something a little special to me, and the reason why it's so special is because this figure was a favorite back in my childhood. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Toy Island electronic RoboCop. Now this figure was released by Toy Island in 1993 to coincide with the release of RoboCop 3. And just to give you a little bit of history with the figure and the movie, back when I was a kid in the 90s, the very first RoboCop that I ever watched was RoboCop 3, and I absolutely loved it. Now, remember, I was a kid back then. I didn't realize how bad of a movie it was until I was an adult. But back then I just loved the movie, and I thought RoboCop was awesome. He was pretty much like, he was pretty much a superhero. And I guess you can count him as a superhero. I guess he does fit the criteria of being a superhero. I mean, he fights evil, he's a robot, and does so many cool stuff. But I love that movie so much, and I remember going to my local KB Toys back when I was around. Oh, man, I miss KB Toys. Oh, the childhood. I remember going to my local KB Toys, and I picked up this particular RoboCop that you see in front of you, and absolutely loved it. This one is the Repair Station RoboCop. Now, there were three different versions of... This is the smaller 4.5-inch scale RoboCop, and there were three different versions. This one right here was the one that I had. It was my very first RoboCop, and I absolutely loved it. So, I recently picked this one up at Comic-Con. It was in the exhibition hall, and I went to a little booth that was selling vintage toys, and I happened to spot this guy, and the moment I saw him, I was speechless, because I've been looking for this guy for a very long time. Because if there's one thing that brings a smile to my face, it's reclaiming pieces of my childhood, and this is a good example. So I was very happy I found him, and the guy was charging $15, but I was able to score him for $12, so just $3 less. I mean, that's not bad. And he was more than happy to let me have it for that much because he knew I was a fan. I told him, how much I adored this figure back when I was a kid. So I'm really happy that I was able to bring him home with me. And of course, I took him out of the package or out of the card because, I miss having the feel of being able to hold him in my hands. So before we get into the video, let's go ahead and take a look at the card itself, which I still have. So this is a card right here, which I still keep. I don't know if you can see that well. There we go. That's more like it. Yep. Electronic RoboCop. And as you can see here on the top, it's got the... Here's the interesting thing. Even though these figures were released with, as part of a RoboCop 3 line that was meant to coincide with the release of RoboCop 3, it doesn't have the RoboCop 3 logo. It's just the generic RoboCop logo. I don't know why, but it's not a bad thing. For ages 3 and up. Pretty interesting. The funny thing is I mentioned that, sorry there. Whew. Close one. I mentioned earlier that, I absolutely loved RoboCop 3, and, that was the only RoboCop that I ever watched. Well, I'm sorry, no, I take that back. Sometime after I watched RoboCop 3, I did see a little bit of RoboCop 2. Now, RoboCop 3 was the first in the RoboCop franchise to be given the PG-13 rating, whereas the previous two, RoboCop 1 and 2, were rated R and were not for kids. And to this day, it still amazes me that my mom even let me watch RoboCop, at least the second one, which was not a kid's movie. So I always got a kick out of that. But this is what the front looks like. So you can see it's got the RoboCop logo on the top and very nice artwork of RoboCop. It looks very, very good. It's in the front here. And I still have the plastic that he was enclosed in. So bring it forward. Just touch him. Wow. That sounds so wrong. They could have just at least put try me which is what they normally put on electronic figures. But no, they put just touch, and that sounds so wrong. That's so funny. There's a Toy Island logo. I wonder whatever happened to Toy Island. I remember they used to make... I liked these figures, and during the mid-90s, they made a series of Mortal Kombat trilogy action figures, which were essentially the old Hasbro Mortal Kombat figures from the early 90s, but just scaled up just a little bit. I enjoyed those as well. And you can see Orion Pictures on this. Right, there we go. Orion Pictures. Let's look at the back. So you can see how there are 3 different RoboCops in this line. We have the 4.5-inch electric RoboCop, which we are taking a look at. Now, like I said before, there were 3 versions of this figure. The one I have is the repair station. There was also one that came with multiple guns, including the arm gun that you see here displayed. Mine didn't come with that, but it's okay because I never really cared much for it anyway. But I did have that figure. I did have that RoboCop later on in life after I'd lost the other one. And the third version of the smaller figure is a jetpack RoboCop I'm sorry. Yeah, getting a little tongue-tied there. It came with the jetpack that was seen in RoboCop 3, which I did see that one, by the way, at the same booth I picked up this guy over here. Same price. He was right behind it, but I just wanted the repair station one because, again, that was the one I had as a kid. Then we got the 8-inch talking RoboCop. I've seen some pictures online of that one. It looks pretty neat. And then we have this guy right here, the 12-inch Audiotronic RoboCop with electronic arm weapon, or weapon arm. I've seen pictures and videos of that figure online, and it looks pretty cool. One interesting thing about it is there is no mouth. Instead, it's a translucent, pinkish colored plastic that has a mouth painted on it. And whenever it lights up and, you know, whenever it made the sounds and everything, it would glow or blink, I think, along with the visor. That thing looked like a pretty cool figure to own. And you can see here, also with on the back of the card, are still images from RoboCop 3. You know, I have to say, even though the movie was not that great, there were a couple of things I did like. One of them being Robert Burke. I think that's the actor. Robert Burke's portrayal of RoboCop. He did a pretty good job. He certainly had a very good voice for the character. I mean, yeah, he's no Peter Weller, but I think he was a pretty good RoboCop in my opinion. Proof of purchase right here. And I like this right here on this side. RoboCop is proud to be a part of the fight against drugs. Join him. Don't do drugs. Partnership for a drug-free America. Man, why can't toys do this these days? And then also right here it says 4.5-inch electronic RoboCop uses 2 LR44 button cells. Replace them if the sound becomes weak. And I'll talk about that for a little bit once we get into the figure. So that's the packaging. So let's get into the figure itself. Back away here. Okay. So this is RoboCop himself, and bring him up here. So this is a really neat figure. Let's go ahead and talk about the paint real quick. The paint's really nice. It's a metallic, bluish, silver kind of paint. Kind of reminds you of RoboCop 2, which I've always liked. I don't know about you, but I've always liked the blue color on RoboCop better than the traditional silver. He had the blue in RoboCop 2. I don't know. I think it just fits better, especially because, you know, he's a cop, and cops are known for wearing blue uniforms. So I think the blue color scheme works better on him. There are a couple of areas that are missing paint, like, for instance, around the collar here. That should be black. And then if you look behind his helmet, this part right here should be the same color as the rest of the helmet. And then some black paint missing where the joints are, but overall it's not bad. And as far as the detail goes, I'm very impressed. This figure, for the most part, is very accurate when it comes to the detail. They were able, I'm surprised on how much of the detail they were able to fit into this thing for, you know, being a kid's toy and all. It's accurate to, you know, what was on screen. I know the visor is supposed to be black. It was never red, but I like it. In fact, it's funny because ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted to see RoboCop with a red visor, and I finally got my I got to see what that looks like in the 2014 reboot, where it was only in the all black armor that he had a red visor, which I thought was pretty cool. In fact, I'm gonna admit, guys, I don't care what you guys think. I liked the 2014 reboot. Yes, I said it. I liked that version. I thought it was pretty cool, and it was an interesting take on the RoboCop franchise. But anyway, moving on. Yeah, the detail is really nice. They even got the pistons right here on the back of going from the ankles to the back of the leg here. Not even the old Kenner RoboCop from the late 80s had all this detail. So, you know, props to Toy Island for doing such an incredible job with the detailing, especially for a small scale figure. His accessories include, he's got to have, of course, his Auto 9 pistol, and I've already put it in his hands. So it's really nice. Again, nicely detailed. It is losing a little bit of the paint, so I try not to mess with it too much. And this arm is removable. In fact, I'll go ahead and pop it off here. Yeah, this arm is designed to be removable because, again, with the other two RoboCops of this scale, they came with the gun hand that he had in RoboCop 3. This one, for some reason, and it's not just the one I picked up, all the repair station RoboCops didn't have the gun hand, but it's okay because, like I said, I didn't really care much for him. I mean, it was a cool weapon. It was really cool that he was able to, you know, replace his left arm with that thing, but I don't know, I just always cared for just, you know, a basic RoboCop with just, you know, him posing with his Auto 9 pistol. Too bad his leg can't open up, and you can store it, but it's okay. As far as the articulation goes, not a whole lot. For one, there is no articulation whatsoever in the head and the torso because of the electronics inside. So his head doesn't move. There is no swivel or rotation at the waist or hips. His arms can move, but that's all they can do. There is no joint at the elbows or swivel at the wrist, and then his legs can move back and forth. Again, no hinges, no joints at the knees, and no sort of movement at the feet. So it's a pretty basic figure. Now, I mentioned when I was going over the card that he takes two LR44 cell batteries. Now, the figures already came with the batteries, but because this figure is so old, because again, this is from 1993, so that's well over 20 years old. The batteries were corroded when I opened it up, and unfortunately the electronics doesn't work anymore. So even when I put new batteries to see if it'll work, and nothing. So it's just the age, you know, and I guess even the old batteries that this figure was equipped with just being corroded, I guess it damaged the electronics. So sucks. This thing was supposed to make a cool beeping noise, and the visor was supposed to light up. So that would have been really cool because that was one of the things I loved about this figure as a kid. So I'm a little disappointed that it doesn't light up anymore. Going back to the accessories, let me grab this right here. This is the repair station. It's all right, I guess. I mean, it's pretty basic. There's no paint on it or anything, just solid plastic. It's a really light bluish gray color. It sort of looks like the repair station from the movies. I mean, in the movies it was more of a chair, whereas this stands up. So nothing real fancy about it, really. And you're supposed to put him on this thing. Let me move his arm up. Supposed to fit. Doesn't really fit too well. I have seen a couple of photos online of this figure with the legs more spread apart. I'm actually glad that mine are not like that. That the legs are more closer together, because I feel like it just makes them stand better. So, and this thing came in 2 pieces: the base, and then, sorry, I almost knocked him over. The base and the repair station itself. I'm probably going to store this somewhere because I just care about, you know, Murphy himself. So yeah, that's the 4.5-inch electronic RoboCop. And again, I'm really glad I picked him up because, you know, this was one of my favorite toys as a kid growing up. So it was really nice getting to, you know, bring him back home with me, reclaiming my childhood. And one of the things that I really like about this figure is that he looks really good compared to this guy right here. Oh, that is too... There we go. He looks really good when compared to my NECA Toys RoboCop, which coincidentally is also supposed to be modeled after his appearance in RoboCop 3. This figure right here came with the jetpack from RoboCop 3, so I think they look really good together. I'm so glad I have both of these because RoboCop has just always been one of my favorite movie characters of all time since I was a kid. So I'm glad I finally got to get these two together, because that was one of the reasons why I really wanted this guy right here, knowing that I had this one. It'd be they can go together side by side. So now that I have my 2 RoboCops, the early version and the modern version, now all I need to do is, I do own a NECA Toys Terminator endoskeleton, and another one of my favorite toys from when I was a kid was the old Kenner Techno Punch Terminator from Kenner's Terminator 2 line. So if I can get that figure, that'd be so cool, because then I'd have a good old RoboCop versus Terminator set going on with old against new, you know, or the old figures that I had when I was a kid, and now their modern counterparts. So got to make sure I look for that thing. But this has been a review of the Toy Island electronic RoboCop with the repair station. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and favorite. And until next time, I will see you all later. Thank you all, and God bless.